What I am about to tell you is not a theory. It is not spiritual wishful thinking. It is not the kind of thing you are supposed to believe on faith alone. It is documented. It is witnessed. In some cases, it is on camera. And in every case, it involves human beings doing things that should be impossible by every law of physics that was ever written in a textbook. A man in India sits in a government-monitored room for weeks without food or water, and his vital signs remain stable. Doctors cannot explain it. Scientists cannot replicate the conditions. It simply should not be possible. And yet it happened. Verified. Documented. Real. A woman is told she has a tumor that will kill her in 3 months. She refuses chemotherapy. She refuses surgery. She goes into deep inner silence, and over the following weeks, the tumor disappears. Her doctors call it spontaneous remission. What they mean is, we cannot explain this. But they sign the paperwork confirming it happened. A monk in a freezing room meditates while soaking wet sheets are draped over his body. In temperatures that should produce lethal hypothermia within minutes, he generates enough internal heat to dry the sheets completely. Multiple times, in a single session, witnessed by Harvard scientists. A man sits alone in a room at a distance of hundreds of miles from a random event generator and consistently, measurably, statistically impossibly, influences its output with his focused intention alone. The experiment is repeated thousands of times. The results hold. These are not myths. These are not the exaggerated stories of people trying to sell you something. These are documented, verified, peer-reviewed human events. And they all point to the same conclusion that the people who hold power over what you are taught have spent a very long time trying to prevent you from reaching. Reality is not fixed. It is responsive. And certain human beings have discovered how to make it respond to them in ways that everyone watching calls impossible. Today, I am going to tell you who those people are, what they know, what they have done that science cannot explain, and most importantly, whether you, sitting exactly where you are right now, with exactly what you currently have, can learn to do what they do. The answer to that last question is going to change everything you believe about what is possible for a human being. Stay right here. Let me start with the people. Real, documented, named human beings who demonstrated something that the ordinary rules of physical reality cannot account for. I am not going to speculate about whether these things happened. They happened. The documentation exists. The witnesses exist. And in each case, the person who did it left behind an explanation for how. That explanation is what matters most for what I am going to tell you in the second half of this video. Prahlad Jani, the man who did not eat or drink for decades. Prahlad Jani was an Indian mystic who claimed to have lived without food or water since 1940. In 2010, the Indian Defense Research and Development Organization placed him under continuous medical observation for 15 days. He ate nothing. He drank nothing. His urine output was 0. His weight remained stable. His vital signs remained normal. The team of 35 doctors and scientists who monitored him around the clock could not explain what they were witnessing. They published their findings. They acknowledged the findings were genuine. And then the conversation went quiet in mainstream circles because the implications of what they had documented, that a human being could sustain physical life entirely without the biological mechanisms science considers essential, did not fit the framework they were operating within. What Jani himself said about how he did it was consistent throughout his life. He was sustained by a divine source. He had accessed a state of interconnection so complete that the ordinary biological requirements no longer applied because he was drawing directly from a source of energy that preceded the physical. In our language on this channel, he had aligned so completely with the source that the source itself was sustaining his physical form. Wim Hof, the Iceman who rewrote human biology. Wim Hof is a Dutchman who has climbed Mount Everest in shorts, who has run a full marathon above the Arctic Circle in temperatures of -20 degrees Celsius without special clothing, who has submerged himself in ice for 1 hour, 44 minutes without his core body temperature dropping. But more significant than any of those achievements is what happened when scientists at Radboud University Medical Center in the Netherlands decided to study him properly. They injected him with a bacterial endotoxin that in normal human beings reliably produces symptoms of illness: fever, headache, shivering, nausea. These symptoms are not produced by weakness. They are produced by the immune system responding to the threat the way every human immune system does. The response is considered automatic, involuntary, beyond conscious control. Wim Hof produced no symptoms. None. His body did not respond the way every medical textbook said it had to respond. His immune system, using the breathing and meditation techniques he had developed, simply did not follow the rule. The scientists then trained a group of 12 volunteers in Wim Hof's method for 10 days and repeated the experiment. The volunteers produced significantly fewer symptoms than the control group who had not been trained. The researchers had to conclude the impossible, that a human being can consciously influence the involuntary immune response, something that was considered completely beyond conscious control until Wim Hof proved otherwise. What Wim Hof says about how he does it is the same thing every person on this list says in different words. He goes inside. He becomes completely still in consciousness. He connects to something deeper than his ordinary self. And from that connected place, he instructs his body to do what ordinary thinking would say it cannot do. And the body complies. Neville Goddard, the man who bent. Social reality. Most of the people on this list bent physical reality. Neville Goddard bent social reality, and in some ways what he demonstrated is more relevant to most people's daily lives than ice baths and starvation. Neville Goddard was a mystic and teacher who in the early 20th century taught a method of consciousness that he claimed could produce specific desired outcomes in physical reality, including the appearance of specific people, specific opportunities, specific circumstances, through inner practice alone. Not prayer in the traditional sense, not affirmation. Something more precise. The complete inhabiting in imagination of the reality desired as if it were already actual. Feeling it real from the inside before any evidence of it existed on the outside. He documented hundreds of specific cases. People who had been told they could never have children and who had children after practicing his method. People who needed specific visas and entry permits that had been refused and received them after the inner practice. People who needed specific sums of money in specific time frames and received them through completely unexpected channels that no planning or effort could have produced. What makes Neville significant is not the cases he documented. It is the consistency of the principle he taught and the thousands of independent people across the following decades who practiced his method and reported the same results. The mechanism he described, inhabiting the desired reality completely in consciousness until the outer reality reorganizes to match it, is not unique to him. It is the same principle described differently by every person on this list and by every deep spiritual tradition on Earth. Nikola Tesla, the man who bent the laws of electricity. Tesla is included on this list not because he performed mystical feats, but because of what he said about where his inventions came from. And what he said is more extraordinary than any of his inventions. Tesla described his creative process as one of complete inner receptivity. He did not work out his inventions through calculation and experimentation the way conventional scientists of his era did. He received them. In states of deep inner absorption, he would perceive complete inventions, fully formed, fully functional, with every component in place. He would then build what he had already seen working completely in the inner world. And it worked because it had already worked in the dimension of consciousness before it was expressed in the dimension of matter. Tesla said that his brain was only a receiver, that in the universe there is a core, a heart, from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. He said he had not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but he knew it existed. What Tesla described is precisely what every genuine mystic on this list and throughout history has described. A dimension of reality that exists prior to physical matter and from which physical matter takes its form, and the ability of a human consciousness sufficiently stilled and sufficiently aligned to access that dimension and receive from it what the ordinary thinking mind cannot generate. Jesus of Nazareth. The most documented reality, bender in human history. We have talked extensively about Jesus on this channel, but he belongs on this list directly and specifically, because what he demonstrated, healing people with a word, calming storms, feeding thousands from almost nothing, walking on water, raising the dead, these are not presented in the texts as miracles performed by an external supernatural force acting through him from outside. They are presented as the natural consequence of a human consciousness completely unified with the source. And Jesus himself said so explicitly. He did not say, "I am the only one who can do this." He said, "The things I do, you will also do, and greater things than these." He was not describing his own unique divine exception. He was describing what becomes available to any human consciousness that reaches the level of alignment with the source that he had reached. He was the demonstration, and he said directly that the demonstration was meant to show what was possible, not to exclude everyone else from the possibility. Now here is what every single person I just described knows. The one thing that sits underneath all of their different methods, practices, traditions, and backgrounds. The one truth they all arrived at through different paths. Reality is not something that happens to you. Reality is something that happens through you. The ordinary person lives in a relationship with reality, where they are the recipient. Reality delivers its conditions and they respond. The situation determines the feeling. The external event produces the internal state. The outside runs the inside. The people who bend reality have reversed that relationship completely. For them, the inside runs the outside. The inner state determines what the outer reality organizes itself around. The consciousness leads and the physical world follows, not as a belief, as a lived, practiced, verified experience that becomes more consistent and more powerful, the deeper the inner alignment grows. This reversal is not achieved by willpower. It is not achieved by positive thinking. It is not achieved by the force of wanting something badly enough. It is achieved by something that looks from the outside like the complete opposite of force. It is achieved by going so deeply inward that the ordinary self, the ego, the conditioned personality, the frightened surface consciousness, releases its grip on what it thinks reality should be. And in that release, the consciousness touches something beneath itself that has access to the creative substance of reality in a way the ordinary self never can. Every person on this list, every genuine mystic in every tradition across all of recorded history, every human being who has produced results that ordinary reality cannot account for, has described this same movement. Inward, past the ordinary self, into something vast, still, and directly connected to the creative intelligence behind physical existence. Prahlad Jani called it the divine sustaining him. Wim Hof calls it becoming the observer of his own inner world. Neville Goddard called it the state akin to sleep where the conscious self steps aside and the deeper creative consciousness takes over. Tesla called it becoming a receiver for the cosmic core. Jesus called it the Father within who does the works. Different words, same direction, same doorway, same source of the power that bends reality. And here is the most important thing I need you to understand about all of them. Not one of them was born with the special ability that you were not born with. Not one of them received a power from outside themselves that is unavailable to you. Every single one of them developed a capacity that every human being possesses and almost no one is ever taught to access. The capacity to go past the ordinary self into the dimension of consciousness, where the relationship between inner state and outer reality is most direct, most immediate, most completely under the influence of what the soul knows rather than what the conditioned mind fears. You ask directly whether you can do this, and I am going to answer you the same way I answer every question on this channel. With the full truth, including the parts that are hard to hear. Yes, you can do this. The capacity is yours. It is in you right now. It has always been in you. The same source that sustained Prahlad Jani without food sustains your heartbeat without you having to think about it. The same consciousness that Wim Hof learned to direct into his immune system is the consciousness you are using right now to process these words. The same creative intelligence that Tesla received his inventions from is available to you in the same stillness he accessed it from. The same source that Jesus called the Father within is the source we have been discussing throughout every episode of this channel. You have access to the same thing. But access is not the same as mastery. And this is where I need to be completely honest with you about what the difference actually requires. What it actually requires. No shortcuts. Prahlad Jani did not discover his state in a weekend workshop. He had been in deep spiritual practice since childhood. His relationship with the source was not something he built in a few months of meditation. It was the work of an entire lifetime devoted to nothing else. Wim Hof spent years in the ice and in practice developing the relationship between his conscious mind and his body's involuntary systems. He lost his wife to suicide and went into the cold because it was the only place the grief did not swallow him. The practice came from genuine depth of need and genuine depth of commitment over genuine depth of time. Neville Goddard practiced and studied and failed and kept practicing for decades before he began producing the results he eventually documented. Tesla was in a state of near continuous inner absorption. He slept very little, he ate very little, his entire life was oriented toward the receptive state from which he received his inventions. And Jesus, as we have discussed on this channel, was the expression of a soul that had been developing toward its moment of fullest alignment across an arc of experience far larger than a single lifetime. I am telling you this not to discourage you. I am telling you this because the truth about what bending reality requires is the opposite of what most content on this topic will tell you. It is not a technique you can learn in a video. It is not a hack. It is not a shortcut. It is the deep, sustained, completely genuine work of going inward further and further over time until the ordinary self becomes increasingly transparent to the source beneath it. Until the division between your conscious intention and your subconscious belief closes. Until your body, your emotions, your mind, and your soul are all pointing in the same direction simultaneously. Until the source can move through you with increasing freedom and decreasing obstruction. That work takes time. It takes genuine commitment. It takes honesty about where you currently are that most people find uncomfortable to sit with. And it produces results that begin small and accumulate into something extraordinary over months and years of genuine practice. What you can do starting right now, but here is what I also need to tell you. You do not have to reach the level of Prahlad Jani or Wim Hof or Tesla to begin experiencing real effects of this principle in your daily life. The same mechanism that produces extraordinary results at its full development produces real, tangible, undeniable results at every stage of its development. The moment you begin going genuinely inward, the moment you begin practicing the stillness that puts you in contact with the source beneath the noise of your ordinary mind, the field around you begins to respond. Not dramatically at first, but unmistakably. The synchronicities increase. The right conversations happen at the right moments. Solutions to problems that had seemed completely blocked begin to appear. People respond to you differently. Doors that were closed begin to open. These are not coincidences. They are the field responding to your changing frequency, to the increasing coherence between your inner state and the source beneath it. And they grow. Steadily, consistently. The more genuine the inner work, the more visible the outer response. You will not dry wet sheets in a freezing room next month, but you may solve the problem that has been blocking you for years. You will not sustain yourself without food, but you may find the energy and the clarity that you have been lacking for as long as you can remember. You will not raise the dead, but you may watch something in your own life that you had given up as dead begin to move again. Because the principle is the same at every scale. The source responding to genuine inner alignment is the same whether the result is sustaining biological life without food or simply producing a solution you could not have reached with ordinary thinking alone. The magnitude differs. The mechanism is identical. There are people on this earth who bend reality. They are not mythological. They are not performing for cameras. They are not special exceptions to the rules of human consciousness that everyone else must live by. They are human beings who discovered through different paths the same thing, that the ordinary self is not the deepest self, that beneath the conditioned mind and the frightened ego there is a dimension of consciousness that is directly connected to the creative intelligence behind physical reality, and that when a human being learns to operate consistently from that dimension rather than from the surface, the relationship between their inner state and their outer reality changes completely. Prahlad Jani showed you that the source can sustain a human body beyond its apparent biological limits. Wim Hof showed you that a human being can consciously influence what science considered completely involuntary. Neville Goddard showed you that the inner inhabited reality consistently precedes and produces the outer experienced reality. Tesla showed you that the greatest creative power available to a human being comes not from calculation, but from receptivity to the source. And Jesus showed you what a human consciousness, completely transparent to the source, can do. And then said you can do this too. Can you do what they did? Yes. Not all at once, not without the journey. But yes. Genuinely yes. The capacity is in you right now in this moment. The same source, the same connection, the same doorway inward. The only question is whether you are willing to do what each of them did. To take the inner work seriously. To go past the surface of your own mind consistently and genuinely, to develop over time the kind of relationship with the source within you that makes the outer reality increasingly responsive to your inner state. That willingness is where it starts. not in the dramatic moment of bending something, in the quiet daily decision to go inward one more time, to be still one more time, to trust what is found there one more time. That daily decision is the first bend in reality you will ever make, and it is the one that makes all the others possible. Share this with someone who needs to know that what they have been told is impossible might simply be something they have not yet learned to access. Subscribe to Truth Frequency AI, and come back. Because the next truth is the one that takes everything we have discussed and shows you how to live it in the middle of an ordinary day.